The movie is set in 1989, and it starts with a US commercial jet in the air. The pilots are chatting, as usual, when all of a sudden the plane is struck by another jet, the DC-10, from above. This causes the main pilot to lose control of the plane, hence resulting in its free fall. With time running out, the first officer goes to check the engines, but to his horror, he finds that every single passenger is dead, and that their corpses are burned. He rushes to the cockpit to relay the information, and in the meantime, we see a strange device on the plane's floor. The very next second, the entire jet explodes and crashes. The scene then cuts to National Transportation Safety Board investigator Bill Smith and his colleagues, who are finding clues regarding the plane crash. There, the investigators meet a theoretical physicist named Dr. Arnold Mayer, who is also curious about the crash. He believes that something supernatural might have caused it. Really? How'd this guy get to be a doctor? Meanwhile, Bill gets handed the cockpit voice recorder, with which he can recover the pilot's conversations from while they were in the air. Afterward, he, along with other investigators, goes to meet the air traffic control officer Jans. After a bit of questioning, Jans reveals that he and 3 others were handling 40 flights and were very tired at the time of the accident. However, the strange thing is that when he looked away from the control screen for a second, he saw the DC-10 plane appear out of nowhere. Jans claims that he did inform the pilots to turn away, but by that time, disaster was imminent. As he says this, he starts crying, so Bill and the others leave him be. Friggin' little baby. Shortly after, Bill heads to the airport hangar, where all the remains of the plane have been kept. There, he notices the ticket agents handing out coffee, including an attractive woman named Louise Baltimore. He calls her and asks for a cup of coffee, but she mysteriously runs off after seeing him. Bill ignores the strange occurrence and sits down to listen to the cockpit recordings. A while later, Louise finally brings him and the others their coffee. The two seem attracted to each other, and after she leaves, Bill notices something odd while listening to the audio. He hears the first officer yell that the passengers had already died and were burned before the plane crashed. However, the investigation shows no evidence of a fire before the crash. This confuses all of the investigators, and they conclude that the first officer might have said that out of fear and shock. After this, Bill enters the gymnasium, where the dead bodies and their personal belongings are being examined. The lead examiner shows Bill a digital watch that somehow is moving backward in time. In addition, the examiner brings out 2 other watches also moving backward, further adding to the confusion because all 3 of them couldn't be broken at the same time. Later, Bill is seen answering questions from reporters in a press conference. Dr. Arnold also shows up and pressures him by asking if the team has found any unusual phenomena from the crash site. However, Bill doesn't answer the question and says that it is confidential information. After the press conference, he decides to go to his hotel, and on the way, he bumps into Louise. Bill invites her for a cup of coffee, but she proposes they go out for dinner instead. I guess they skipped a few more steps because the scene then cuts to the 2 in bed. After Bill falls asleep, Louise sneaks into the bathroom. Then she calls the room service to cancel Bill's 6:30 a.m. wake up the next day. The next morning, Bill is frustrated as the hotel didn't wake him up. Louise says that this might be fate, and for some reason tries to convince him to not go to work. However, Bill says the investigation is very urgent. He then leaves the room only to return back in a few minutes after remembering he left something behind. But to his surprise, he cannot find Louise anywhere and assumes she has run off. In the afternoon, during a meeting, Bill calls up the ticket agency and asks for Louise. However, the company is not able to find that name in its records. This makes him believe that she was lying about her identity. At night, Bill is in the hangar even after closing time, looking at all the plane remains. Suddenly, he hears a beeping sound and then sees a flashing red light beneath some of the rubble. Upon further investigation, it's revealed that the sound is coming from the strange device which was shown in the beginning when the plane first crashed. Bill fiddles around with the strange device when all of a sudden he gets zapped and falls to the floor, unable to move. Then 3 women wearing some sort of military outfits run up to him. Among them, one woman is Louise, who now has a completely different appearance than before. In addition, she acts and talks as if it is the first time she is seeing Bill. It is then revealed by one of the women that the device is called a stunner. We also find out they have come to retrieve it. Louise warns Bill to abandon the investigation or else a devastating time paradox will ensue. The women then leave and walk into a bright blue light and disappear. Shortly after, Bill stands up and in his hand is a part of the stunner which Louise failed to get. The scene then cuts cuts into a futuristic setting, and it is revealed that Louise and the others are actually time travelers from 1,000 years in the future. Here, pollution has turned humans infertile, and humankind is on the verge of extinction. Hence, a team of the world's best scientists has sent women into the past to abduct people who are able to reproduce. The plane crashes were part of this plan, and the abductees are kept in stasis until they can be sent into the far future to repopulate the Earth. That's complicated. The time-traveling hotties probably could have just said, "Hey, you down?" and fixed everything. As the team of time-traveling women returns, we are introduced to Louise's personal robot, Sherman. He tells her that their master is calling them, so they go into the control room to meet him. Their master then tells Louise that because she talked to Bill, it has caused the past to change, and this causes a time quake, similar to an earthquake. Furious, Louise questions her master if she should have killed Bill. However, she is soon told by another one of her teammates that it would have resulted in a major time paradox, killing everyone, and giving Tarantino really good ideas. This calms Louise down, and shortly after, they watch Bill on a screen as he wakes up. When he starts yelling her name, Louise is stunned as she believes she had just met Bill for the first time. She asks Sherman how he could have known her name. The latter explains that in Bill's timeline. However, in Louise's timeline, she met him for the first time in the hangar, where she went to retrieve the stunner. Afterwards, Sherman puts Louise through a set of tests and scans her body for another mission to 1963. He then states that Louise didn't have enough cigarettes back in 1969. This indicates that the air in the future has become so polluted that whenever they travel back in the past, they smoke cigarettes to mimic their own timeline's atmosphere. Sherman then preps her for time travel and makes her dress up as an air hostess. Following this, we are shown a lecture by Dr. Arnold Mayer, where he discusses the possibility of visits from time travelers. He goes on to explain that time travelers prefer not to be seen by people, or they only come into contact with people who are likely to never be seen by others again, like on a plane when its crash is inevitable. He ends his lecture by claiming that time travelers are real, we just have less information about them. This better be a community college. Elsewhere, Louise and the others leap into the time machine and travel back to 1963, where they appear on a plane. They use the stunners to slowly take out the other air hostess and the passengers. As they do so, a man attempts to hijack the plane, which results in a time traveler getting shot. This causes her to drop her stunner, which is found by a boy. Louise then uses her stunner to kill the man. After a while, the boy tries to inform her about the previous stunner he found, but Louise puts him to sleep before he can say anything. Afterward, the entire back half of the plane goes through the time machine into the future. It turns out that the plane in 1963 was going to crash, so teams from the future are sent into the past to abduct people who will die from the impact. This way, no lives are taken, since the people who were about to die in the plane crash are the ones being taken to the future. The team then escorts the passengers out of the plane and replaces them with identical clones who are already dead. This explains the first officer's comment on the bodies being burned before the crash, as the time travelers had pre-burned the identical clones in preparation for the crash. If you predicted that plot twist, we here at Mystery Recapped owe you a cookie. After that, the master discloses that the man who was about to hijack the plane was going to shoot toward the cockpit, resulting in a crash. Hence, he orders the ladies to plant a bomb in the cockpit, so as not to alter the past, which will also prevent any paradoxes. After placing the bomb inside the cockpit, the team then gets off the plane. Afterward, the wounded time traveler says that she lost her stunner in the plane, so Louise decides to rush back to the plane and find it. However, the bomb in the cockpit has already started counting down, forcing her to get off. In the next scene, we see Louise in a council meeting with people inside large tubes, which helps them survive due to the harsh conditions of the future. The council says that the first stunner, which she lost in 1969, ended up in the possession of Bill Smith, and the second one, which she lost in 1963, will eventually end up in the hands of Dr. Arnold Mayer. If he finds out what it can do, he might be capable of figuring out how it works, and might unveil the truth about time travelers. So, they decide to risk another mission back to 1969, where she will meet Bill a day before he got the stunner, and prevent him from finding it in the hangar. The scene then cuts into the past, where Bill sees Louise for the first time, while he asks her for a cup of coffee. The movie plays out as it did before, and this explains why she was trying to convince Bill to not go to work previously. Before they go to the hotel, Louise does a bunch of normal activities very weirdly, like driving a car and eating a salad, as in her timeline, these things are not possible. The next day, after Bill leaves the room for work, Louise calls to be returned back to the future, and as a result, Bill cannot find her in the room when she returns. Shortly after she returns, they experience another time quake, but this one is much more intense. Afterward, Louise and the Master observe Bill and realize that instead of investing investigating the crash, he is searching for Louise and the answers behind his unusual experience in the hangar. Louise then says that Bill will most probably meet with Dr. Arnold Mayer and discuss her and the stunner. Bill eventually visits Arnold, and it is revealed that the stunner lost in 1963 wound up in Arnold's possession, which set his path to investigate what caused the crash. Arnold then shows the stunner to him, while Bill also shows the part of the stunner that he found in the hangar. Unbeknownst to both of them, Bill is actually in the possession of the stunner Initiator. It is then revealed that Bill was also one of the passengers who boarded the 1963 plane and was the only one to survive. In fact, he is the same boy that saw the stunner and was put to sleep by Louise before he could utter a word. Meanwhile, worried that they might cause a huge paradox, Louise decides to pay Bill and Dr. Arnold a visit. Shortly after, she materializes from the future and reveals her mission to them, hoping that the two will voluntarily keep the secret. During the conversation, Arnold accidentally kills himself while reassembling the stunner with the help of Bill's Initiator. Now, because Arnold was necessary for the development of the gate technology, which makes time travel possible, his death results in a time paradox that will destroy the entire future civilization. Terrified, Louise rushes to the time gate in order to get to the future. However, Bill, who has now finally found the love of his life, decides to follow her through the gate with the intention of never leaving her side. The two jump through the portal and find that in the future, everything is coming to an end due to an infinite and intense timequake that lasts forever. Now, the only course of action to save the human race is to send all the people who were collected from the planes into the distant future to repopulate before the time machine is permanently destroyed. So, the Master slowly initiates the time machine after he wakes the people who were kept unconscious in holding pens. He then orders them to move to the time portal immediately. After everyone is through the portal, Bill prepares to go through it, but stops when Louise says she has to stay back. However, Sherman convinces her to go and start a new life with Bill. It is then revealed that Louise is pregnant with Bill's child, and so the couple steps through the gate together and disappears while the explosions engulf Sherman, the Master, and all the members of the council. Let's hope if they go forward through time, that baby doesn't just explode out of her tummy. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.